Okay, again, I would like to say all praises be to AHAYAH in the name of Yeshaya. We're doing a lesson that we haven't done in a long time called King James. The truth about King James. The sixth and the first. We sent the information to your email so you can follow us. Now, when we put this together, with the mindset of tearing down the myths, or I would say more so the lies concerning King James, and to have our brothers and sisters understand the agenda behind smearing King James' name. Usually, if you want to destroy any part of literature or anything that could have any level of validity, you must first try to tear down the core components of how the literature was compiled. So, you notice that when you hear King James, especially amongst our people, and I think they aim the lie towards us on purpose to get us out of the Bible. But when I was growing up in the black neighborhoods, and you mention King James, the first thing someone would say is, well, he was a homosexual. Mm-hmm. He was a homosexual. He had sex with his mother, blah, blah, blah. They made him out to be the worst person who have ever lived. Mm. And come to find out that the majority of people who made these statements didn't do any research concerning King James. They was just repeating what was told to them. They didn't have any concrete proof, but nonetheless, they believed it. Okay? So the question is, why would they want our people to believe that King James was this tyrant, this evil homosexual who had sex with his mother? What? And here it is. I noticed that the propaganda machine that controls rumors and innuendos would normally clear up any level of improprieties concerning people they respect. Like, for instance, and I'm going to bring this up to date, not too long ago, a few months ago, there was a scandal under the English monarchy there in England. There was a scandal that so-called one of the prince, what was his name? So-called prince over there in England. One of the Prince boys was in Las Vegas. And they claimed that he had a scandal with a prostitute in Las Vegas. All right, even though he's married or whatever the case is, he had a scandal in which he was dealing with prostitutes in Las Vegas when he visited the United States. And the British monarchy and tabloids did everything to not only cover up his improprieties. On top of that, they started moving the stories towards his generosity and how much he loved his family. They spend it in a way where the public could receive him as an honest so-called prince. And that's modern day. So you should ask yourself a question. And they even had him in the United States in New Jersey not too long ago, giving out food to poor children and all that in New Jersey, to make him seem pious, to cover up his evils that was public. And my point is, why won't they do anything to clear up the lies concerning King James? Why the British monarchy, who's supposed to be Christians, why haven't they done any spin to clean up King James amongst the society? Don't they want everyone to respect the Bible? Most people, some people, especially our people, will deny the Bible if we believe that it was penned or the authority of the book was some sinner, some evil man. So wouldn't they want to clean that up to bring everyone into this Judeo-Christian way of life and respect the Bible? No, because you're going to find out during this particular lesson They're the ones, the British monarchy, the Roman Catholic Church, the European Romans, they're the ones who created the lie, knowing that in the end times, God's people would begin to cleave to their book. So they had to smear someone who was attached to its compilation. Now listen to me clearly, and that's what you're going to learn today. So, these allegations of King James. Is there any proof that these alleged acts of King James or these sinful actions that are rumored, is there any truth to them? Now, if someone come up to one of you brothers and sisters and claim that King James was a homosexual, or King James was this or that, what proof you have to refute these allegations? Well, we're going to go through a few things, a few bullet points, and some history. Matter of fact, lawyer, pass me that book real quick, because I would like to put this out first and foremost. Okay? Thank you, my brother.
Mm-hmm.
You go up to a brother who's a black Muslim and say, well, it's time for you to come back to your Bible. You're not Muslim, you're not Arab. That Islam is a conquering religion, the same as the European Christian, Roman, pagan belief is a conquering religion. You are a slave to the Arab ideology. Come back to your Bible. They'll ignorantly tell you that King James was a white homosexual that had sex with his mother. And then you, being one of scholarly understanding, will say, well, I have a book here, King James VI and the First, in the Reunion of Christendom, which is a part of Cambridge Studies. And we know Cambridge University is one of the most prestigious colleges in the world. So, Cambridge University tells us something different. Oh yeah, King James VI and the First. And look at that brother right there. He looks black. He don't look white to me. Oh, you mean to tell me something is going on here? So you mean to tell me all those white images were lies? Now that opens up a whole new can of worms, don't it? If King James was a black man who ruled in Europe, how did he get there? And why didn't the British monarchy and the Christian pastors in our church tell us that King James, the man who authorized the translation of the King James Version Bible, was black? That changes everything. If King James was a black man, and in the same book that was authorized, which was translated out of the original tongue, speaks of black people in the scriptures, and speaks of a black Christ in Revelations, the first chapter, then that would have the slaves look at the Bible entirely different. No longer could they lie to us and claim that the Bible is a white man's book. No longer will they, matter of fact, that break us away from the ideology that the Bible, that Christ was a white man, that God is white. Now, not that it would matter to us if it was true. I wouldn't have no problem with Christ being a white man if that was true. But what would that information do to slaves' morale if they realized that people of the Bible are people of color and King James himself was a black man? See, I don't have to sit here and come up with different types of ideologies or futile arguments to state facts. You know, I don't have to refute the lies out there with just argument or innuendo. I did the research. We did the research, and we realized this is not even an argument. It's beyond any shadow of a doubt that King James was a black man. As a matter of fact, every radio show I've been on, every media outlet that I've been a part of, and I mentioned King James was a black man, not one person of any scholarly understanding refuted it. Not one. Not one stood and said, well, King James wasn't a black man. They would actually go into a different conversation and divert it by saying, well, it doesn't matter what color people are. But not once on any level of not dealing with just the regular people who just don't have the understanding, who haven't done the research, dealing with scholarly researchers and historians. Everything's all right? Scholarly researchers and historians. Not one argued back and said, well, King James wasn't a black man. Because they don't even want the conversation to be there, because if it's acknowledged that King James is a black man, it changes everything in our view on the Bible, and also it'll point to a cover-up. See? Who covered it up? So, I don't have to argue based on my opinion concerning King James of the Bible. I'll just bring out the facts. And today, brothers and sisters, you will have the facts to refute this argument. And then if it comes to, if the argument and the facts are put on the table, you can turn the argument and say, well, now that you know this, what is your view of the Bible? Now that you know that King James had been lied on, in a pretext to keep you out of your own book, will you view the book differently? So I'm not here to tear down the lies of King James because I just want everyone to reverence King James. That's not our point at all. Our point is, if we tear down the lies, will you accept the book now? Because they have used King James' color and his sexual persuasion, quote unquote, improprieties in his sexual relations to steer ignorant people away from it. See? So if you know the truth now, will you come back to the book? All right. So that's my point in bringing it forth. I'm not here to just clear King James name. Why? Because it'll be forever trying to clear all the improprieties the Roman Catholic Church and the modern day media use to smear our people all the time. That's just what they do. Okay? I'm just clearing the air so that it can lead us back to the same book. All right? They lie on us. That's why the Roman Catholic Church are not going through any PR, public relations to clean King James' name up. They don't want his name clean. They need you to believe something else so that you can reject the book he helped authorize. And there's nothing wrong with him authorizing this book of literature. He had no hand at all in translating the book. He was just the king who made sure the authority, he had the authority to make sure our records were protected. So when the Most High awakened God's people, we will have a record to go to in our modern day language. That is what he knew what they were trying to do. He's seen something going on. But let's just deal with the lies concerning him first. First, let's begin with some background history that you might not have known, and it's in your literature. King James' name was James Charles Stewart. All right? He was born June 19th in Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. Oh, don't be surprised. I know when you look at the news and look at TV and you see Scotland and England, you think it's all white people, don't you? You've been bamboozled. See, when you're in a box, if you're in a slave mentality and haven't been anywhere, they can control your perception of the world by showing you Scotland and never showing you black people. There's millions of black people all over the world and in England, and was there before the slave trade. Okay? So don't be surprised when you hear black people in Scotland. That's like oil and water. That doesn't sound right. Black people should be in Africa, right? That's how you have been programmed. That's part of your program. When you think black, you think Africa. They want you to think that. Okay? How did these black people get in England and rule in England? Nature knows no color line, have coats of arms with nobility. by J.A. Rogers, showing black people of nobility ruling in Europe. Why? Because after Rome fell, after Septimius Severus and Pescennius Niger, a black man, took over the hierarchy of England, the black people ruled during the Dark Ages. Judah was set up again over in Europe. And that's why the name of England is called England, which means angel's land. The original Anglo-Saxons, when you translate the word Anglo-Saxon, it means the angelic sons of Isaac. Who are the sons of Isaac? Jacob. Yes, we ruled Europe. While white people were there too. They had their little provinces which they ruled, but we were nobility in England. And that's why when you look at some of the old 1700 dresses of them coming to America, you see nobility or people of stature, Caucasian women, wearing bells under their dress. Showing them they had corsets on their waist and had bells under their dress to show a big derriere, or mimicking the black women who were ruling nobility in England. So that's why they had the bells under their dress, to mimic the black woman's shape. Okay, you didn't know this, did you? Okay, see, but you've been programmed. All right, now let's go back to it. His name was James Charles Stewart. All right, born June 19th in Edinburgh Castle in Scotland. See, we got books. All right, we're not going to go for what they tell us. All right, we've researched. All right, he was born to Mary Queen of Scots, Lord Darnley, in 1566. Oh yeah, his mother was black too. Lighter skin, but black. His father was murdered a year later after his birth in 1567. This led to King James, or the young Prince James, being crowned the King of Scotland while he was only 13 months old. He was 1 year old and 1 month when he was already anointed king after the untimely death of his father. All right? He was at this time crowned James VI of Scotland at the age of 12. Why? Because under the Jew law, 12 was when you go to the temple of the priest to be anointed as a man. That's why I tell you, in Christ, when he was 12, they went up to Jerusalem. Why? He had to anoint him under the Jew law. So yeah, King James was not only black, oh yeah, he was a Jew. At the age of 12, hold it, let me look at that. Look at that clearly. Can't get Prince Charles out of that, can you? Look at that there. They didn't want you to know. That's why they got fusion centers. Let's go back to this here. He was at this time crowned James VI of Scotland at the age of 12, and he assumed power over the throne. Now, from the time of his youth, James was tutored in the languages of Greek, Latin, French, Italian, and Spanish. He was also a well-learned historian in his own right. Now, it also was important to mention that he was learned in arithmetic, cosmography, the study of maps, along with many other areas of learning. So they don't want you to know that not only are you noble, you have the propensity to be highly educated and rule. See, they could not teach this to slaves that were on the other side of the Atlantic. If these slaves who went into America, who was enslaved there, knew that at the same time that black people were ruling, that would change their perception of hope. And know that being a slave is not, you don't have to be in a slave mentality. You can actually operate and run the world like you once did. Now, follow me here. He was learning cosmography, the study of maps, along with many other areas of learning. All right. Now, after ruling Scotland for 36 years, King James, a black man, became the first ever king to rule over both England and Scotland when he became King of England in the year 1603. That's why he's called King James the Sixth and the First. The Sixth of Scott the first of England. Now, while in Scotland, he was called King James VI. That was due to the fact that he ascended to each of these thrones at 2 different time periods. Now, while there were already 5 James that ruled prior to him, he became the first ruler over England. Now, he was the first king to sit on 3 different thrones at once. Now, check this out. Not only did he sit on England, he also sat on the thrones of Scotland and Ireland. I know when you think of these countries, you think of white Caucasians. While white Caucasians lived in the land, black people ruled in great number too, mind you. And I don't think that that's not possible. Sitting in a country right now, if you're in America, there's many white people in America, but you can have a black person ruling, as you have a black person in a rulership seat, even though it's ceremonial. Nonetheless, it's a rulership seat with Barack Obama. All right? But at this time, King James, not like today, was ruling from the throne with no powers or European influence or Roman influence in his cabinet or to control his goings. Why? Because King James was protecting Zion in his rule, during his rule. And he was fighting against the Roman Catholic Church. I'm going to get into that in a moment. He was the first king to sit on 3 thrones at once. So this is not your everyday so-called black man that's uneducated. All right? You're uneducated because they would like to have it so. But going back to King James. England, Scotland, and Ireland. He was responsible for uniting these 3 countries into what is called Great Britain today. Okay? Before this time, before it was called England, it was called, in ancient times, Britannica. Now, you would believe that an accomplishment as great as this would be taught in your modern history. Now, if the Roman Catholic wanted you to really come back to the Bible, black people, and embrace this word, wouldn't they promote such a great man with such a great work, this highly educated black man of nobility? No, they want you to believe that he was a white homosexual that had sex with his mother. More, claiming, now, he was also responsible for calling a decree for the translation of the Old and New Testament out of the original Hebrew and Greek tongues. Now, this translation is known today as the King James Version 1611 Bible, and it is the most accurate translation of the Bible. Now, before I go there, Lloyd, I need you to do me a favor, right? Mm-hmm. I need you to go over there real quick and grab that King James in the bond. Mm-hmm. That big book for me? Yeah. Grab that for me real quick, please. Now, while he gets the book, because I want to show you this is important, because this book came from England itself, and I want you to see this, and especially for all the so-called Christian pastors out there who didn't do this research. A matter of fact, black pastors or any pastor for that matter, that's teaching in the poor neighborhoods. Okay? If you're teaching in the poor neighborhoods, brothers and sisters, then this is the information that you should use to empower our people. What greater way could you pull our people out of their spiritual or religious coma? What greater way, if you're trying to lead them back to the Bible, to give them proof that their people had a hand in its creation? What greater way? And that's why our people have been a prey to Muslims, Buddhists, and all these others, because they was able to lie on King James. Now, I had a lawyer come grab this, and I like to thank the sisters who actually donated this book in England, and may the Most High have grace on them. This actually came from Oxford University. See that? This is proof here. Especially for you black preachers out there. Oxford University. And it got the signet, and here's your original King James that was translated. The Holy Bible concerning the Old and New Testament out of the ancient, what you would call Quaker English. In this original translation, what do we have here? Oh, you would never guess, pastors and preachers. The King James Apocrypha. See that word there? Apocrypha. See that? Look on your screen. You see that word Apocrypha there? To show you that the King James Apocrypha, the 14 books were a part of the original translation. But they'll never tell the black churches. They'll never tell the churches this, because why? In the Apocrypha, it mentions the Europeans putting up a false image of Christ and using pagan rites to destroy God's people and teach a new religion on earth. It also teaches about the 10 tribes that left Israel, the northern kingdom, in 2nd Ezra, the 13th chapter, of how the North American Indians, all the tribes that were over there in the New World when the Europeans got there, that they were from the lost tribes of Israel. So they took the book out and they lied to the ministers and made them believe that the Apocrypha was not spiritually inspired, so they had to take it out. No, it had nothing to do with that. It's very spiritually inspired and prophetic in content. They lied to you to keep you from the book so that you would not identify the true people of God and uphold the impostors over there in Palestine as the children of Israel. See, we got the proof. King James was a black Jew. Now that I have his book in front of me to show you we have proof, and if you don't believe it, research it yourself. What are you going to do now that you know the truth? Are you going to take this information and proclaim truth throughout the earth, or will you continue in the lie that have been perpetrated amongst our people? And I'm saying black, white people, no matter what color you are, alike, spread the truth. It's in front of you. Now, speaking to pastors and preachers and teachers who are not of our color, who are of different persuasion, if you deny this information because you claim color don't matter, you are part of the conspiracy. Because color does matter. Why? Because they lied to our people and claimed that King James was a white homosexual. And that had a lasting impression on how a lot of our people viewed the Bible. So it did matter. If you have people who have done things to you at this time when the information was coming out, you had people water hosing our people, Jim Crow laws, racial tension. So you had a demographic of people who felt a certain type of way about another people who was actually treating them bad. So then you have somebody come up to them and say, well, listen, these same people treating you bad was your King James. These same people who are treating you a certain type of way authorized the Bible. So how can you trust the Bible if the people that are doing this to you, see, is now the authority of your book? Lay down your book. They wanted you to do that. Not because you studied the book and know whether or not it's correct or incorrect, because of what you were feeling emotional during a time of racial friction. So during that time, they was able to fragment the people with what? Black nationalistic teachings, and claiming that our religion that we should follow is Islam, and that the Bible, we shouldn't follow that because King James was a white homosexual. They use an emotional point to take us away from the Bible. During the civil rights, so-called civil rights movement, there was a fragment amongst our people. We all agreed that the oppression of government was wrong. But some people use that as a pretext to introduce Islam and to smear the Bible and take us away from the truth concerning the book. Now, let's get back on track here. Let me first give you a picture of him again. Let me show you him again. Now, some people will say, well, there's pictures of him being white. Yeah, but these are whitewashed Renaissance pictures of King James that are white, that they have that out there that are white. See, they could not whitewash this image because it was done on cloth. And if they would have tried to whitewash this image, they would have destroyed a great piece of art. So instead of destroying it altogether, they just put it away into universities where only certain people could view it. And they know that our people are not interested in literature like this anyway. So if you want to hide something, you put it in the book. How many of you out there who claim that King James was a white homosexual and lied on him did actual research concerning him? There he is right there. Now, he was also responsible for calling a decree for the translation of the Old and New Testament of the original Hebrew and Greek tongues, which we have in front of us, all right, and have read. This translation is known today as the King James Version 1611 Bible and as the most accurate translation of the Bible, simply because it correlates almost exactly with the Hebrew and Greek text it was translated from, the scrolls. You understand? And that's why you're not supposed to be dealing with any other book. These new King James versions, these new NIVs, is to actually separate you from the truth concerning the accuracy concerning the King James Bible. That's why they came up with these new books. And the Jehovah's Witness translation. They did all these new translations knowing that we would one day wake up and begin to cleave to that original literature, our ancestors' scrolls, which have been translated into the King James Version Bible. Now, let's speak of some of King James' political views. He was a staunch opponent against the establishment known as the Roman Catholic Church. In all the literature, he was their arch enemy. Okay? So when the Christianity came over to the New World that they have given to the world, it wasn't the real church that came over to the New World to bring forth Christianity. It was the bastard Roman Catholic Church. King James was trying to protect the integrity of Christ's church. He made such quotes in his book, King James, the 6th and the 1st AP, which I have in front of me. I don't want to go through the whole book, but I'll give you some excerpts. He have one excerpt, the Pope is Antichrist. And King James, the 6th and the 1st, meditation upon Revelations 27 through 10. And last but not least, the scripture forbid to worship any image of anything that God created. So King James in his book was making quotes concerning Exodus the 20th chapter, not to have any level of idolatry, and was pointing out the Roman Catholic Church as the church of idolatry. That's King James. You have never heard this before, that he was in war against the Roman Catholic Church, right? Also in certain literature, King James the 6th and 1st, a premonition of all most mighty monarchs. Here we have listed just a few of many of the quotes of King James. In fact, James authored many books exposing and opposing everything from the Roman Catholic Church to the Rosicrucian, which we know is a satanic religious faction. He also wrote against the Catholic Church, the Rosicrucian order of witchcraft and sorcery that began to rise while he was still on the throne. So you had a political and a religious faction that was looking to wipe King James off the map. Now, A collection of King James writings can be found in a hard book named, listen to the name, The Works of the Most High and Mighty Prince James. Now we can see why the Roman Catholic Church didn't take any measure to protect King James' character. They were his enemy. And come to find out, all the rumors sprung up after he was already dead. There was no such rumor as King James sleeping with his mother or being a homosexual or anything like this while King James was alive. Now, let's deal with each point of character, starting with King James was a homosexual, right? Mm-hmm. This is probably one of the most prominent of all accusations against him. Yet there's very little to no one that I've seen have actually researched this accusation and found it to be true. So the question is it true or false? Was King James a homosexual? Let's think about it for a moment. Let's talk about it. Let's go straight to it. Let's speak of his family. Let's speak of his family and what he was about. And I want you to think about this yourself. Now, let's go straight into it. Number one. First and foremost, we would like to establish the fact that King James was not a Caucasian, which we have established. In fact, many of the rulers of Europe from about 193 up to the 16th century were black nobility, which I spoke of earlier. And what I would like to do is for you, those that have the literature in front of you, I want you to look at page 4, right? Which is a portrait of Jan Mastaert, a nobleman of the Queen of Austria. You see him? And it's almost funny because every time I see the picture, I say this looks like lawyer a little bit. Looks like lawyer, right? Page 4. Do we look like a slave to you? We look like an uneducated slave to you, right? I want you to, we're going to keep on going here. The early 1500s, there's a sister with an earring on around her, and she have a little ribbon tied around her head. Look at her hairstyle, similar to the hairstyle the sisters have today, right? That's on a coat of arms in Belgium. That's on page 5 of your literature. I need you to look at the next coat of arms in Fressing. That's a black man of nobility with a crown from the 1500s, the early 1500s, showing you the time period of what you would normally see on the coat of arms during the time that black people ruled England. Slaves will never get this information within the United States and all the slave territories in which our people were led captive. Now there's more. I need you to go to page 6, St. Maurice. See that? Look at St. Maurice in this coat of arms. And look at the armor he have. Look at that hat he have on there. Look at his bush. Okay, that's St. Maurice. That's just proof of what was going on in Europe during the time that we were ruling, fighting against the Roman Catholic Church. And for those who think there's only one picture of King James, on page 6, we have 2 other pictures outside sources that was actually painted on different canvases showing King James pictures of him being a black man on page 6. For those who have the Academy literature, you have that. And see, and that's the proof that you'll need to refute some of these lies. But let's talk about his color and the homosexual remarks that was made. So I had to put that out there. Now, so the idea of him being Caucasian is out of here. Now let's talk about him being a homosexual. Where and how did this understanding come to fruition? Is there any substantial proof showing this to be true? Now, the answer to this question goes back to the year 1650. 25 years, mind you, after King James' death. Now, the author of these allegations of him being a homosexual came from Sir Anthony Welding. All the literature that you will see on King James being of homosexual persuasion usually come from this particular literature, and this is what Egyptologists use and black people that are against the Bible use to say that there's old literature proving that King James had a homosexual partner in all this, right? Now, let's go into it. Sir Anthony Weldon, a 17th century courtier and politician who had personal vendetta against James. That's one who you would like to get to write a memoir of you. Your enemy, right? He had a personal vendetta against King James. And in this book, he have a book called The Court and Character of King James. That is what's used. The Roman Catholic Church paid Sir Anthony Weldon to write this literature to smear the future character and shaping King James' character with the black population. They was actually aiming this towards us so that we could not respect him as nobility and think that we are great, and it would put a wedge between us and the Bible whom King James authorized. See that? So the Roman Catholics didn't come to give you the truth concerning the ministry of Christ. They became the authorities over the book so they can ration and give you what they needed to control you within the book. They never wanted you to know that the book was yours and it was authorized by black people. Now, there's another author, Francis Osborne. He's another guy that the Roman Catholic Church paid. Okay? He also had a problem, and these are well-documented reports of his friction against King James during King James' life. So why is it that his enemies' information is the information that's promoted concerning King James? No one had even asked that question. None of you have ever known this up until the time you've actually heard this video. Now, let's talk about what we know of King James outside of his enemies. Okay? First, King James had a wife. They had 9 children. Her name was Anne of Denmark, another black woman. This was James' only wife. He was faithful. And they married in the year 1589. So you would have think all the rumors concerning King James, that there will be one rumor about his wife and 9 children. Not rumor. You would think that someone would stand up and say, well, hold up with all these smearing, this smearing campaign concerning this man. He did have a wife and 9 children, you know, and he was faithful. He only had one wife. 9 children. Not one argument to back King James' character came from the Roman Catholic Church or the European powers or the monarchy that rules today. This literature is well-known literature. So why don't they promote that? They want you to think of King James as an evil man, because that automatically ties you to perceiving the Bible in the wrong way. See, they need to do this to bring you into an anti-Christ society. All right? Now, the lie that King James had sex with his mother, that's another bold-faced lie. Somebody tell me, when did King James have the opportunity to do this? His father was murdered in 1567. He was only 13 months. His mother was dethroned and imprisoned temporarily in 1567 because, why? They suspected that she had something to do with King James' father's murder. So she was actually in prison the same year. She again was arrested for 19 years based on those allegations. She was arrested a year later. King James is 2 years old. His mother was executed in 1587. Okay? So someone tell me When did King James have the opportunity to sleep with his mother? Don't ever accept the rumors and lies, because they have always lied on us. What do you think they do on the news? All day long. All day long. And when we're innocent of a crime, they'll pull out something that happened. Well, he was arrested when he was 15 over there was some alleged drug peddling or some alleged assault. They still try to smear us backwards, so that there's no level of respect towards us. Even if we're innocent, they'll always bring up something that happened 15, 20 years ago to try to smear us. Well, he do have a record of, or she had a record of against police and was incarcerated 30 years ago. This is how they portray us. While they portray themselves in great nobility, the Queen of England with a crown and the Prince, cause are thieves. Now, here's another rumor they have out there. Well, King James tampered with the Bible. The Bible was tampered with. Listen, you need not tamper with a book if the minds of the people are tampered with. I would rather research the book and find it to be true than to just go with some excuse that have been tampered with when there haven't been any research to say that, to prove that the Bible was tampered with. Now, of course, a few words were translated because translated wrongfully, like the word Easter shouldn't be in the Bible. But should I throw out the whole Bible because one word have been translated a certain type of way under not under King James, but under the cause all powers, the Roman Catholic Church, so that they can bring in paganism? No, I'll just go into the concordance and see what the word was before it was translated, but still uphold the record, because the overall message of the Bible is powerful and it's liberating to our people. So I'm not going to throw out the whole Bible because of a few words. But they would like you to. So they claim that King James tampered with the Bible. Well, that's another allegation and lie. All right? King James was not responsible for touching the Bible. Matter of fact, he had no hand in the Bible when it comes to him personally doing anything. All right? The reason King James authorized the translation is Bible prophecy in itself. Let's go to Isaiah the 28th chapter.
Isaiah chapter 28, verse 11.
Read.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
Read it again.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. Telling us that the Most High will speak to his people. What? With a stammering lip and a new tongue. So the Bible is telling us that our people would need another language to communicate with the Most High. That the Hebrew language would be lost. So the Most High would speak to us in the future in a stammering lip and a new tongue. And that's why King James Version was translated out of the original tongues. Because the Most High needed to speak to his people in the last days. His people went into captivity, learned another language, a new tongue. So the Most High will put his spirit on this king, one of the last kings, the last black king of Judah, to translate, to get translators in one room to fulfill this prophecy, so that when the Most High begin to awaken his people, they would have a record of what happened to their forefathers. See? Starting to make sense? So there's many of our people who are just right out ignorant, that repeat the banner, the banter that King James was a homosexual, slept with his mother. You're just outright ignorant of history. And you want to believe that. Why? Because you've been brainwashed. Okay? The Bible is not a white man's book. The people of the Bible are black. If the Bible was a white man's book, wouldn't they have put themselves up in the Bible to be white people? Wouldn't it say in Revelation, the first chapter, that they were white? Wouldn't it say that? They would have taken out the point that Moses was black? They would have took out the point that Moses' sister Miriam was black. It tells us all in the scriptures that these people are black people, people of color. Let's go to Deuteronomy 28 and 49, so that we can get an understanding of why King James had to authorize the translation of the Bible.
It says, the Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
It says the Lord will bring a nation against thee from far.
From the end of the earth.
From the end of the earth.
As swift as the eagle flieth.
As swift as the eagle flieth. So what people overtook our people? The eagle. The eagle represents Rome. Edom. Now, who's the eagle? Hold that and get the book of Obadiah, the first chapter and the first verse. So the Edomites would come against our people and eventually would teach us a new language, right? You got it. Let's go to Obadiah 1 and 1. Let's see who the eagle is.
Obadiah verse 1. The vision of Obadiah, thus saith the Lord power.
Go ahead.
Concerning Edom.
Concerning Edom, when we know Edom was the twin brother of Jacob, who lost his birthright, who sold his birthright and lost his blessing, who have the hierarchy of Edom have become the arch enemy of the children of Israel. So of course they would lie on our great kings. Let's read what this vision.
Verse 4. Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle.
Though thou exalt thyself as the eagle. And set thy nest.
And though thou set thy nest among the stars. Thence will I bring thee down, saith the Most High.
So they would eventually use their technology to go into space. That's Edom. That's Rome. Those are Edomites. So they have lied. And they were behind beheading our beloved King James. They were behind killing him. And they put Germans or Khazars on the throne. And the families that are ruling the earth today from Britain are not Jews. They are not who you think they are. They're Edom. They're the Roman monarchy reassumed. They have taken back the thrones that our people took during the Dark Ages. They're Edom. Edom, who was the father of the pure blood Caucasians, because all white people are not from Edom. Just the top families. A lot of white people out there have mixed blood or have mixed with our people, and that's why they're looking to depopulate and destroy the plebs or the lower of their people who have mixed their blood with us. It was out of Edom that both the Grecians and the Romans descended. Two nations whose national emblem is the eagle. Now listen to this clearly. They were responsible for enslaving our people. And who is that? Judah. So, a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand. When our people was taken from the shores of Africa, with the exception of a few learned men, had long forgotten our forefathers, we've forgotten our original tongue, which was Hebrew. It was under our captivity in America and other areas, like the some parts of Britain they had slaves, and in the West Indian Islands, Haiti. We forgot our language and began to pick up a new language. Now, we were totally separated from our Hebrew tongue. King James, this black man right here, understood who he was and who his people were. He also knew who the enemies of his people were. Predominantly the Roman Catholic Church had a problem, and under secret societies would look to destroy us in the future. So he had to put some scholars together to protect us, to give us some beacon of light in the future. when the Most High would begin to awaken our people. Now, so he also knew the enemies that were against him would eventually engage us. He had our original sacred texts, which were protected under him at this time, translated into the language that will be given to us by our oppressors. That was an act of the Most High. The fact can and will be proven today that King James' epistle, the dedication he had within his record, which is contained in the front of the Bible, it tells us his purpose, and we're going to read that today. That King James actually put in the book, the beginning of the book, his purpose for bringing all the scholars together to translate the greatest record on earth. See? So why he didn't pen or touch the Bible itself from Genesis to Revelations, he actually wrote and penned himself. The reason he got all these authorities and translators together. He tell us why. And see, because of this, the Vatican said, well, we can no longer uphold the King James Version. We must now switch it off and give people the NIV. Because the NIV and the New Bibles took King James' monologue out of the book of his purpose for translating the book. And you would never guess who's the publishers of the new NIV. The same publishers of the Luciferian Bible and the Satanic Bible. Yes, same publishers. Now, getting back on course here. Before we bring forth this information, we would first like to prove to you all, you brothers and sisters that are viewing this, that King James had nothing to do with any mistranslation of the Bible over time. This information can be found in the Zondervan Bible Dictionary. And when you go to this definition for Bible, you will also see that the definition is broken down into subdivisions. One of the subdivisions is King James Version. When you read this definition, it explains the following. Read that out of the Zondervan.
It says, in the course of time.
In the course of time.
Slight alterations were made.
Slight alterations were made.
Especially in spelling to conform the changing usage. But these were all done by piecemeal or done piecemeal by private enterprise.
By private enterprise. So that's telling us that the Zondervan Dictionary admits that there have been slight changes to the Bible, not by King James, not by those he authorized to translate the book. All right? But instead by private enterprise. Now, who in control of private enterprise in publishing today? Pagans, the Jewish Khazars, these atheists, these people who are behind publishing all literature. So, of course, they would switch certain things to actually promote their paganism within our record. So the onus is on us to throw out the things they changed for enterprise. Now, a private enterprise is basically defined as a business or system controlled, usually publishers, who profit from the literature. So instead of government or agencies, we know that the biggest culprits that's behind private enterprise is the synagogue of Satan today, who are your modern day publishers. So they were behind changing some of the things after King James was killed. See? And they always have a political agenda and a spiritual agenda also into doing what? Converting the masses into paganism. All right? So when they put Easter in the book of Acts, the 12th chapter, that wasn't King James that did that. They took in King James Version, it was the word Passover. They switched it to Easter so that they can have the whole world worship the goddess of star. Because the real gods of the Jewish powers are who? Are the same mythological gods of ancient Rome. They're pagans. They're just hiding behind our name. They're hiding behind the word Jew. But they're pagans. Now, they've done things like injected the word Jehovah or Jah or Yah because they follow the god of the Tetragrammaton, which is Baal or Baal-Li. They follow the god of the Tetragrammaton, which is the god of wickedness, which is Satan. So they injected the word Jehovah and Jah and Yah in the book also. Now, I'm just giving you just a few examples of how we did the research, and we know what was changed. We know who changed it. So that you don't throw out the baby with the bathwater. All right? But King James did not do this. So the same people that have lied on King James also injected the Bible with certain words that would authenticate or give authority to their pagan gods. All right? And Christ identified them as the synagogue of Satan. All right? King James didn't do that. Now, let's read King James' purpose, right? For translating, for getting the translators to translate the book. Let's read it.
It says, to the Most High and Mighty Prince James.
This is in the front of every authorized King James version. Read.
To the Most High and Mighty Prince James, by the grace of God, King of Great Britain, France, and Ireland, defender of the faith.
Go ahead.
The translators of the Bible with grace, mercy, and peace through Jesus Christ our Lord. Great and manifold were the blessings, most dread sovereign, which Almighty God the Father of all mercies bestowed upon us, the people of England. When first he sent your majesty's royal person to rule and reign over us. For whereas it is the expectation of many who wish not well unto our Zion.
Who wish well not unto our what?
Our Zion.
So he's saying, I'm translating this and I'm putting my authority and signet on this record. Why? Because there's some people out there who wish not well unto our Zion. Now we all know Zion is synonymous with the children of Israel. All right? So when you see Zion today, a Zionist today, that have nothing to do with what he's speaking of. The Zionist today is an atheistic, satanic movement against the children of Israel, which is the real Zion. So he's saying that there's people out there that don't wish well to our people. So he had to scurry up and get all these authorities of translators together to protect the record before these culprits come in and destroy it. So he's even given us the reason for the translation. He says, because there's some people out there who wish not well our Zion. Read.
It says that upon the setting of that bright occidental star, Queen Elizabeth, our most happy memory, some thick and palpable clouds of darkness would have so overshadowed this land that men should have been in doubt which way they were to walk.
He says because there's a darkness that's overshadowing the land that men should have in doubt which way they were to walk. So if he didn't put this record together, we wouldn't know how to get back to the Most High, because the Roman Catholic Church was looking to bring darkness into the earth concerning the understanding of the Most High. And yes, that's why they're over all religions. They're not just over Christianity. Rome also created Islam. They was going to cause a confusion, so when the time of awakening happened, God's people would be totally confused and not know which way to go. Read on.
And that it should hardly be known who was to direct the unsettled state. The appearance of your majesty as the sun in his strength instantly dispelled those supposed and surnamed mist, or surmised mist.
Go ahead.
And gave unto all that were well affected exceeding cause of comfort, especially when we beheld the government established in your highness.
Go ahead.
And your hopeful seed.
Go ahead.
By an undoubted title. And this also accompanied with peace and tranquility at home and abroad. But among all your joys,
mind you, it says your highness and your hopeful seed. So he did this so that the seed of Israel could have the truth in the end times. So what the Roman Catholic Church said, we're looking to destroy that seed. We don't want Jacob to assume their rightful position and understand that they have authority. So let's get our liars together and write literature of rumor against him. So that when the slaves begin to awaken, then instead of them reverencing King James for this work, they'll look down on him as a homosexual, as someone of sinful persuasion. See? And it pains me when I see even homosexuals come out and say, well, listen, there's rumor out there that King James could have been homosexual. So how can you follow the Bible and not accept us when the guy who authorized the book was homosexual? You see this? They did that on purpose. This is what King James was fighting against. Right?
If I can mention something real quick.
Go ahead.
Let's say, for instance, the rumors were true that King James was a white homosexual.
Okay.
And that was the excuse that they used.
All right.
Does that change the fact that the Bible tells you that it's wrong to be a homosexual? Does that change the rich history and the prophecy and all the things that the Bible contains just because someone is a white homosexual?
Yeah, just say if he was, even though he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, why would he allow, if that was his action, why would he allow Leviticus 20 and 13 to be in the Bible?
Exactly.
That says that if a man lie with mankind as he lied with a woman, he shall surely be put to death. Wouldn't that be a death sentence for him?
Exactly. Exactly.
You understand? But he understood. This guy was articulate, smart. He was one of the most highest intellectuals in the earth at his time. All right? One of the highest intellectuals. Okay? So, this brother understood that the Roman Catholic Church had a mission to keep darkness concerning the Most High in the earth, to confuse the masses so that they wouldn't know which way to go. A matter of fact, when you see the earth today, they have accomplished what King James was fighting against. This is what they wanted. Look at the earth. This was their agenda. To create total darkness on the world and make it where God's people would become subservient to the satanic governments of the earth and be subservient to them. And now they have become the authority of the book. They have become to try to tell us what we should do according to the book. Why? Because that darkness have overshadowed Zion. Now, King James also tells us that the Roman Catholic Church would be that man of sin. That's also in the literature. So what other information do we need more than 2 Thessalonians? Let's go to 2 Thessalonians 2 and 3 and read that.
2 Thessalonians 2 and 3. Let no man deceive you by any means.
Let no man deceive you by any means, because don't forget, King James called the Pope the son of perdition. He called him the Antichrist spirit. Why? Because the spirit goes from one pope to the next. Read.
For that day shall not come.
That means Christ will not come.
Except there come a falling away first.
And we fell away in 70 AD as a people. Read.
And that man of sin be revealed.
So King James was letting us know that that prophecy was in its full fulfillment during King James' time. We fell away in 70 AD, and now King James was identifying in his time the son of perdition, the people who would darken the earth with satanic knowledge and would fight against Zion. He was identifying those whom Paul was speaking of. Okay? Now, that man of sin, according to our research, is Amalek, the father of the modern day Jewish hierarchy and British royalty. James knew that it was the seed, that particular seed, that would eventually overtake the power that our people established in Europe over 1,000 years. It was the Jewish powers, through the help of Oliver Cromwell, that was behind the beheading of James' second son, King Charles of England. So when they killed King Charles of England, they replaced him with the new Prince Charles. All right? King James' mother was the first Elizabeth over England. They replaced her with who? They replaced her with the modern day Khazar, Queen Elizabeth. And that's why the name of your queens are Elizabeth and the name of your princes are Charles. They beheaded the true people of Zion. And now you have imposters, murderers, Roman murderers on the throne. That makes you believe that they were in power the whole time. Okay? So, I hope you have enough information to refute the lies concerning our brother and respect his work. He sacrificed his life and the life of his children so that when it was time to receive the light, that the light would shine through darkness and we would have a record placed together that would connect us to the Father in the end days. Now, my question to you, are you going to believe the truth or continue in ignorance with the lies who are created by your enemies, who will soon work and have worked to destroy you? Christ says in St. John 8:32, St. John the 8th chapter, the 32nd verse, you shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. Well, I'm totally free now. And I'm free to say the truth concerning King James. With that, shalom.
Shalom.
Praise the Most High.